Hello, I think we had a few technical issues there. Sorry about that. You guys all were able to vote in our polls, but we did our whole introduction without you guys seeing us. So we'll do that little bit again. I'll just say welcome. Katrina here is with us from Information and Advice Services.
Hello, everyone.
And she's going to get straight into this presentation. So thanks everyone for voting in those polls just then for us. That's great. Okay. All right, so today I'll give you a bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to do LAQ services and the types of legal problems we can help with. We're going to do our new services. Sorry, I'm just going to close off that poll so you can see us. Okay, so you can hopefully see the slides now. So we're going to go through LAQ's new services, how to refer people to us for help, who is eligible for legal aid, and at the end, I'm going to do a bit of a segment on community legal education. And then for 20 minutes, we're going to do a live Q&A. So if you've got any questions, leave them for the end, and Katrina is really happy to answer them.
Very happy.
Okay. Now
we did have a few pre-webinar questions too, so we'll go through those at the end as well. All right. I may actually answer those questions for you as we go through, hopefully.
Okay. Excellent. All right.
Great. Over to me. Welcome, everyone. So my name's Katrina Smith. I'm the Director of Information and Advice here at Legal Aid. I look after, which essentially means that I look after our contact centre, our client contact centre, which is our call centre, which is statewide. And I also look after our team of lawyers who provide legal advice, also statewide. So welcome. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you have, and I'm very excited to perhaps give you some information about how to assist your clients to access our services. So first of all, who are we? Legal Aid Queensland. We're actually celebrating our 40th year this year, so that's very exciting for us. We are an independent statutory authority. So we do have our own act, and there's some sort of very strict provisions in our act around privacy, confidentiality, and some other sort of obligations that we have as an organisation, and particularly for our lawyers who work at Legal Aid. So you can be assured that confidentiality and privacy for the clients that you refer to us is a very big issue for us, and we take that very seriously. We're funded by both the state and the federal government. So from the state government, we receive funding for what we call our state-based matters. So that they are matters that are dealt with under the Queensland law. So that's things like child protection, domestic violence, most of our criminal law work. There's also a couple of civil law areas that are Queensland law related, which we assist with. We also receive some money from the federal government, and we have money for particularly family law matters, also some very serious Commonwealth crime matters, and just our general sort of day-to-day running and our operations also come partly from the state and partly from the federal government. So although we're funded by the government, we are completely independent, and we pride ourselves on our independence in that way.
Yeah, okay.
So in terms of our staff, you may or may not know that we actually have the largest criminal defence practice in Queensland. So we've got offices all around the state, and we'll go into some information about that a little bit later on in the slides. But we are a very, very large legal practice. We often hear from clients, oh, I don't want a legal aid lawyer, I want a real lawyer. So I just want to assure everybody that all of our lawyers come with exactly the same qualifications as private lawyers. I guess the other thing for us is that our lawyers are very highly regarded by other lawyers and also by the court. So we find that a lot of lawyers are actually attracted to come to work at Legal Aid. So
Katrina, you're a lawyer, child protection lawyer.
Child protection is my area of practice, yes. I've moved over now into sort of more client service. Yeah. So we have had a very rapid period of growth over the last couple of years, and we've got sort of over 600 staff now all around the state. So we are a very large organisation. So you should be able to find someone hopefully near you, and for our regional and remote participants, we'll do some special I guess, pathways for you a bit later on in the slide. So what are we funded to do? Basically, we're funded to help people who've got a legal problem but can't afford to pay a lawyer. And that is increasingly sort of evident in terms of the people who are coming through to us, that we used to sort of really focus on people who had a very low income, but now we find that we're seeing a lot more people who do have a legal problem but who actually can't afford to pay a private solicitor. So we'll talk a little bit more down the track about our services and how you get to the point where you actually have a lawyer to go to court for you. But the other arm of our work is that we spend a lot of time trying to influence policy development and law reform in Queensland. And one of our guiding principles is to advocate for a fair justice system for all. So that's how we do that bit of our work.
Yeah.
Basically, we've got 3 levels of legal assistance that we can provide to your clients. The most frequently used level of our assistance is our legal information. Now, legal information comes in 2 sort of streams, if you like. We have a very, very comprehensive website, which we'll also have a look at in a minute, which has a lot of legal information on there. It also has legal information on some areas of law that we don't necessarily give legal advice on. So legal information is available to everyone, and anyone can call our contact centre, that's our call centre, and get legal information as well. Just so you know, we answer about 145,000 calls a year, so we do get a lot of calls from people, and as I said, that service is statewide, so anyone can call from anywhere in Queensland. Once we move past the legal information stream, and what will happen if your client calls the information, one of the information lines is we have some very highly trained client information officers on that line. They're not actually lawyers, but they are very well trained by us in sort of the law and legal issues. They'll basically talk to your client, get some idea about what the legal issue might be, and then depending on sort of urgency, what the issue is, and whether or not it's a matter that we give advice on, they can actually book your client in for legal advice with one of our lawyers. So we have an advice service that we can do either over the phone. We also have face-to-face appointments in all of our offices, and we also can do legal advice over the video conference. We just need a bit of time to work that out. We have some specialist legal clinics which we can actually put people into, and some sort of partner agencies where we can make sure that the video conferencing happens, so that is possible. Once people have received legal advice, then we can, depending on the area of law and again the eligibility of the client, and we'll move into that in a minute, we can actually then ask people to apply for a grant of aid, and that grant of aid will give that person a lawyer to go with them to court and to manage their legal issue. So it is a sort of a 3-tiered process. Some people, if their matter is urgent, they may skip the legal information and the legal advice and just go straight to putting in a legal aid application. But most people do sort of come to us through the legal information service, either via the website, and we'll show you how to do that in a little minute, or through the contact centre, or alternatively through our front counters. So we have very highly trained front counter staff who can also assist with legal queries and also assist people to do applications and move their matter forward.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you might see on the screen this "Are you looking for legal help?" poster. So you can actually download that poster in your handouts bar. So if you want to download that, it's just got some information on what we can and can't help with in really plain English, plain language. So you can even print that out and put that up in your office if you've got clients coming in, and you can refer to it when you want to.
Yes, so our funding dictates what we give advice and representation about. So there are a couple of things that we aren't funded to give advice about, and you can see that on the bottom of the handout there. So we don't give advice or assistance to anyone who's got a business matter, a company matter, a club or an association matter. Look, we can probably give some referrals, but you won't get past the sort of legal information phase, if that makes sense. Same for commercial transactions or dealing with real estate. That includes tenancy matters. And the reason why we don't give information or advice on tenancy matters is because there's a whole service that's funded to do that. So they're probably the most appropriate referral for tenants issues if your issue is just straight up tenancy. The other things that we don't give information about are wills or making powers of attorney, and we don't give information about personal injuries either. There's a little note down there, and I'll just explain what that means. It says the Civil Law Legal Aid Scheme may be able to help. That Civil Law Legal Aid Scheme is a special scheme where we can actually assist clients who normally wouldn't be able to afford it to pay for some of the things that they might need for their personal injuries claim. So, for example, they might need to get a medical report. Sometimes those can cost thousands of dollars. They may not have the money to be able to do that, and if they're eligible for that scheme, then we will pay for those reports. So if you do have a client that's got a personal injury issue and they are sort of financially disadvantaged, it probably is worth contacting our Civil Law Legal Aid Scheme, and those details are on the website as well. But in terms of giving advice around a personal injury claim, we don't really do that.
Okay.
Right, so as I said, sort of our highest tier of legal assistance is our legal representation, and we provide lawyers to represent people in courts all around the state, and all of the different courts. You'll see there's a list of all of the courts that we appear in. We appear in the Family Court, the Mental Health Court, we appear in all of the Magistrates District Supreme Courts, and we appear on a range of matters, and the matters that we would appear on are set out in that handout that you've just had. We do appear for people in criminal matters, family law matters, and what we call civil law matters, which is employment, anti-discrimination, and some consumer and debt issues as well. We also look after both respondents and aggrieveds in domestic violence matters. We do have a specialist dispute resolution service, so it's probably helpful for you to know that we have a family law mediation service. So we call that our conferencing service, and it's a specialist service. What it will give people is a proper mediated agreement. So there's an independent mediator. People who participate in that program will both get a lawyer to assist them if they're eligible, or one party will be eligible and they'll get a lawyer. What will happen is the lawyer will meet with the client, they'll find out what the issues are, they'll go with them to the conference, call it a conference, go with them to the conference where they'll be the mediator. Then they can also assist them to actually draft up whatever arrangement is made at the conference, and that can include turning that arrangement into court orders. So I guess that's the difference between our mediation service and a service that you might see through Relationships Australia or one of the other mediation services, is that the lawyers can actually do the representation for your client, but then also do the paperwork to make that agreement legal. So for some clients, that's a very important aspect of finalising their family law matters. So, and particularly for our vulnerable clients who find it difficult to negotiate, that can be a really great service. So that's our conferencing service, and there's more information about that on the website. We also assist, and this is probably helpful for our rural and remote participants. We also have a service that can help primary producers who've got debt-related matters, so we can actually assist them with negotiating with their bank or their lender. The gentleman who runs that part of our service is situated in our Townsville office, so it's probably, if you want to make a quick referral in there, it's probably best to just call our Townsville's office direct, and again, the number's on the website, and you can get into that service as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of new services that we have, and these are all services which have just started in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. So I'll start with the flooding because that might be of interest to some people. We do have a specialist flood line where we will answer people's queries relating to the flooding recent flooding. That's also our line that we use for any natural disaster. So we have previously used that for people who have experienced cyclones or other weather events. So that's a dedicated line. And coming through that line, we also have some dedicated advice clinics for people who've got issues, particularly around negotiating with their insurers, things like that arising out of some kind of weather event. And there's a dedicated line for that, and we've got a slide coming up which will give you the number. We also have, and it's recently started, our Youth Legal Advice Hotline. So we've always prioritised young people for legal advice, but we now actually have a dedicated line for them, and that's 1-800-527-527. So that line is available after hours, and it's also available on Saturdays. So it's a line that runs more frequently than our other information lines. And the reason for that is that we recognise that young people, you know, may have some issues that need to be sorted out urgently. So that line during the day is answered by our contact centre client information officers, and we will assist people. We often get calls on that line from parents who've got who are seeking some advice for their young person. We sometimes also get calls from sort of teachers or people who have some issues or just need a bit of assistance with something that's going on for them or in their lives. So if you call through that line during the day, it is staffed by our client information officers, and then if people need urgent advice, we put it straight through. We've got a team of specialist lawyers who only deal with young people, so it's our youth law team, and it will go straight through the lawyers. If you call on the Saturday, that's a special service for young people who are in custody. So if you have a young person who needs some urgent assistance and needs a lawyer, that's the number to call after hours or on the weekend.
Okay, so you're encouraging community workers to call this line as
look,
well?
if they have a young person with them who needs some assistance, and look, obviously sometimes, look, some young people are great and they just call straight through, and we do often get calls from young people straight on that line. But if you've got a young person and you're not too sure what to do with their legal problem, it doesn't necessarily need to be a criminal law problem. Okay. We can give advice around sort of child protection, domestic violence, if there's issues in relation to being excluded from school. All of those things in relation to young people can come through on that line. And we do have a dedicated service for representing young people in criminal law matters and also in child protection matters.
And this is a line not a lot of people know about. So
no.
If you guys can remember this line, it's 1-800-LAQ-LAQ. So you don't have to remember the numbers.
That's
just remember LAQ.
That's right.
Okay.
So we've got a couple of other services in our family law area. Counselling Notes Protect is a service that we run in conjunction with the Women's Legal Service, and it's specifically for people who are victims of sexual assault and who have had their counselling notes subpoenaed in a criminal law matter in relation to the person, the alleged perpetrator. So we can provide legal assistance in relation to how do we stop our counselling notes being taken to court. There's also the possibility for services to actually call through to that line, and we can assist you by finding someone to give you some advice if you're actually served with a subpoena. So that's a dedicated line as well. And we've
got that phone number coming up on another slide, but just in case you want to write it down now, it's 1300-267-762 for our Counselling Notes Protect line.
And we also have a service called our Family Advocacy and Support Services. So we call it the FAS, and it's a service that's actually located in the family court. So it's a special service that is a multidisciplinary service. So we have a social worker and a family lawyer in that service to assist clients, primarily clients who have experienced domestic violence or family violence, to negotiate their family court matters. So people can be referred to that service through the court and or through the duty lawyer at family court. So we normally have a duty lawyer at all of the family law sittings around the state. So the duty lawyer can assist a client to actually get a referral into the FAS service. So if you've got a client who's got sort of a lot of issues and who might benefit from some social worker assistance as well as legal assistance, that's the service that you can refer them to. Right. I just wanted to, I guess, talk through our legal information for you. And there's a couple of slides here which we're just going to go through quickly around our legal information. So you might remember earlier on I said that we are only funded to give advice in particular areas of law, and they are set out on that handout. Even though we're only funded to give advice in those particular areas, our web pages, our legal information pages, actually contain a lot of information about areas of law outside of those ones that we're funded for. So it's a great resource for you as workers. It's also a great resource for your clients if they've got a particular issue and they want to look it up, because we normally have a page on it. The page will say whether we give advice or whether we don't give advice. If we don't give advice in that area, it will still list for you some potential referrals and some other organisations that may be able to assist you with that particular type of query. So it is a good tool for you in that way. I guess the other way to get legal information for people who sort of maybe don't have access to the internet or who maybe struggle with that amount of information, written information, is to call through on our legal info line, which is 1300 65 1188. And essentially the client information officers can go to the page and read out the information for the person if they need that kind of
So it's
assistance.
a great little extra service that we offer.
That's right. So just bearing in mind that those client information officers aren't lawyers, but they can give legal information. But once we get into people needing sort of specific advice about their particular circumstances, that's when we'll move them into the legal advice space.
But this is just about arming people with the information to help hopefully sort out their own issues and know a bit more about what's happening.
That's right. Great. So just so you know, here are some of the topics that we have. We have a range of topics in relation to relationships and children, and obviously
this is your specialty, Katrina.
That's right. So obviously this is a very popular area for people, and there's a lot of information on there about how, you know, what's the law, what do I need to do, what's the process. We also have on our website what we call our self-help kits. So there are particular areas of law where we've actually put together some kits for people, which takes them through the process, gives them some examples of the paperwork that they're going to need to require to file, what they need to put in it. And if you've got some clients who are able to access that and use that, then that's a great tool for them as well. And also maybe for you, if you just want to have a look and see what people might need to do in those particular areas. So you can, I'm not going to go through all of the dot points there, but you can see we've got a lot of information about relationships and children. We've also got a lot of information about cars and driving. So cars and driving is a particular area where we find a lot of clients need legal assistance, but actually may not be able to afford to have a lawyer. So particularly around traffic offences, drink driving, licence disqualification, those kind of areas can be tricky. We do have a specialist, what we call the traffic clinic. So we have some advice lawyers here who have a specialty in traffic offences, people with licence issues, and we can book people in for advice on those issues. They just need to ring through the 1300 number and identify that they've got a problem with their licence disqualification or whatever it may be, and we can book them into that specialist clinic for advice.
And I know my brother, as an aside, my brother recently crashed his car, didn't have insurance, and he actually went onto our Legal Aid website and he looked at the car accident section.
Oh yeah, we have a guide on that.
So it's really helpful for everyone, these topics. Like, really helpful.
That's good.
So
a lot of our work is in the criminal justice area. So we do have a lot of information on there for people who've been charged with an offence or who are worried about being charged with an offence. We have a specialist prison advice service also for people who are in custody. So we have some lawyers who can give advice over the video conference and who also go out to prison and give advice as well. So if you have some clients who that's an issue for, you can again refer them through the 1300 number to the prison advice service. Or alternatively, they can make some arrangements from prison directly to get into the advice clinic. And as I said, young people in the justice system, we have a very large team actually of lawyers who specialise in assisting young people with sort of criminal charges. Okay, our other big area for information is our personal rights and safety. So this is what we call our civil area. And there's a whole lot of services that we do in our civil law area. Just want to bring people's attention particularly to the NDIS at the bottom there. We do have a service that can assist clients who are dealing with the NDIS. Our service is sort of right at the end. Once somebody has gone through all of their internal appeal rights and they're still have an issue and need to take it a bit further, we do have a legal service which can actually do representation for those clients. So again, if you have a client who's got an issue with the NDIS, you need to send them through to the legal info line, and we'll be able to filter that for them and put them into the right clinic so that they can actually see a lawyer and get some advice. And if it's a matter that we're actually able to assist with, we also have lawyers who can represent them and do the paperwork in that area as well.
Great. Okay. Here's just some facts from, we do media releases on these every month. You know, what does a month look like at Legal Aid? You can see we're really busy. We provide advice to 34,000 something people in 1 month, and that was taken from January. So there's just some info if you guys want to read through it. Anything you want to say about that slide, Katrina?
No, just that, you know, we are out there in all sorts of different venues, and I guess if you look, sometimes when we're busy it can take a little while to get through on the phones. So I think particularly for those of you who have clients with a criminal law matter, it is important, number one, that they go to the court date and they see the duty lawyer. We have a duty lawyer in every magistrates court pretty much who will assist our clients with criminal law matters on the day, and that's a very good way for them to actually get some advice straight away and you know, potentially resolve their matter or else get into the process of getting some legal representation. Yeah,
and to our regional areas, we also have the family law circuit duty lawyers who operate out of particular courts, and if you actually follow us on social media, we post when we've got a duty lawyer available at different regions.
Yes.
So if you follow us on social media, you can get updates on that, so you can tell your clients about it.
Yes. And most of our magistrates courts, we also have a DV duty lawyer, and some of our big magistrates courts, we actually have 4 DV duty lawyers rostered on it at a particular time. And as I said earlier, we assist both aggrieved and respondents. So that's a big program. We're just in the process of rolling out our child protection duty lawyer as well. So we're doing it's basically an outreach service from Brisbane, and we're just kicking off. I think they're just about to launch the one in Gladstone, and throughout this sort of the rest of this financial year, that service will be taking off. And so if you need some more information about that, there's information on our website too about where we're appearing and when.
Yeah, okay.
Really important that people with a child protection matter get some legal advice. So I'd really encourage you, if you have a client with a child protection matter, to at the very least give us a call, because obviously that's, you know, it's a very important area. And we have lawyers, and most people are eligible for legal aid for child protection matters, so really they should call through and get some advice and assistance.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I've got a poll up on the screen now. Have you referred a client to legal aid before? We'd just like to know how many of you people use us, or if you're not aware of us at all. So please put your responses in. I'll give you a couple more seconds, and then I'll close off that poll. All right, I'm going to close off that poll now, and I'll share the results with you guys.
That's good.
Okay, so as you can see, 74% of you have referred a client to us before. Great.
Now, I don't know how you did that, but we're just going to talk through a few of the ways that it is possible to get a client to us. So obviously, I'm going to be promoting Call In Contact Centre because that's my area. And here are all those particular lines that we've talked through. So we do have some specialist lines. We have an Indigenous line, which is staffed by our Indigenous client information officers. So there's a special dedicated line for them.
So they can get some culturally appropriate legal information.
Yes. Yeah. And we also have a line, there's that line there that says questions about an application you've already submitted. We'll talk in a minute about the grants process. But if you know that one of your clients has already submitted a grant of aid, but they're not sure what's happened, or they need an update, or they've got a letter that they don't understand, then we do have a dedicated line for people to call, and we'll help them with whatever needs to be helped, with whatever assistance they need to actually get the ball rolling on their grants process.
Yeah.
Another way, and this may be a better way for agencies to contact us, is we've recently put a form on our website under the Contact Us tab. It's our contact form, and you'll see there's some space for you to put in some comments and your name and where you're from. That form actually goes through to our comms team.
Our web team.
And the web team will then filter that according to what the query is. So if it's a query from a client, it'll come through to the contact centre and we'll respond to that. If it's a query from an agency around one of our services or trying to get some assistance for someone, then the web team will actually have a look at that, respond to it, or pass it on to the appropriate area.
Or it might be a complaint about us, or it might be a compliment about us. We get a very wide variety of things through that contact form.
So I think that's a very quick way if you don't want to hang on the line, to call to get some information and get some feedback. And we have people rostered on to actually monitor the contact forms and respond to them. So it's a very should be a quick service. The other way, and for some of our regional people, this is probably one of the best ways, is to actually just go into our office. So we've got offices in most of the major centres up the coast. We've also got an office in Mount Isa, but as you can see, we don't have much in between the coast and Mount Isa. So just so people understand, when someone is given a grant of legal aid, there's two ways that they might, to represent them in court, there are two ways that they might have a lawyer through that grant of aid, and one is that we will give them an in-house lawyer, so that's a legal aid staff member who will represent them. But the other way is that we have a network of private law firms who we call preferred suppliers, who actually we will pay to represent the person. So a lot of our work, particularly in sort of the more regional areas, is done by our preferred suppliers. And people can make an application for a grant of aid directly through their preferred supplier, or they can come to our office and make it in person if they need some assistance, or they can fill in our form, download it from the website, fill it in and send it in to our head office, or any of our postal addresses. Actually, they'll all come to head office to be processed.
Great.
So we do get a lot of questions about the preferred supplier model, and it is a little bit tricky if you don't realise what's happening. But yes, some of our lawyers are legal aid staff. Some of our lawyers are private firms who we pay to do legal aid work. So just talking about who's eligible for legal aid, as I said, the information on our website is anyone can look at that, and you're welcome to download anything on there, give it to clients if you need to do that. If you want to have any of our kits or any of our publications, you can order them, and probably the best way to order them is through the
order them through the contact form. You're welcome. Or my email address, communitylegalaid@legalaid.qld.gov.au. You can send me an email and I'll help you order them.
So all of our kits, all of our booklets, all of our brochures, we'll send to you. For free, I think.
For free. All our publications are free. A lot of people don't know that. So
to hand out. Our advice services, we do, I guess if you think of it as a sort of a filter, Once we get to our advice services, we are starting to look at, firstly, does the person have a legal issue that we can assist with?
Yeah.
And secondly, is the person financially disadvantaged? Our charter, our act and our funding says that we need to focus our work towards people who are financially disadvantaged. So if you think of it as a funnel, we are starting to put some restrictions in place around the advice service. Having said that, most people who call for advice will get advice. But where the funnel really tightens up is when we're looking at legal representation. So when we're looking at who are we going to fund and who are we going to give a lawyer to take them to court,
which is really time intensive to get a lawyer to go to court for a client. So
it is.
You can understand why.
Yeah, and we've only got so much funding.
Yeah.
So we can't, unfortunately, we do have to put some limits around that. So the way we do that is we use a two-prong approach, and one is what we call the means test and one is what we call the merit test.
Yeah, we've got that on the slides here, it's the means test.
So the means test is basically what it says. We look at people's financial capacity to pay for their own legal representation. Now, just because people are working doesn't mean they won't get legal aid. It depends on their individual circumstances, how much income they've got coming in, are they in a couple, is there some kind of other financial support that they have. And for most people, getting through the means test is a pretty straightforward calculation. For some people, it's a little bit more complicated because we do need to look into some of their financial matters to work out whether they're eligible or not. One of the things, and this is something that quite often holds up a legal aid application, is there are two things particularly that we need from clients to help us work out whether they're eligible under the means test. And one of those things is recent bank statements. So it's not enough for a client to just give us the printout from the ATM. What we actually need from them is 3 months worth of their most recent bank statements. So for a lot of clients that can be a bit tricky to obtain. So if you're having trouble with that, or the client's having trouble with that, they just need to call through on that grants inquiry line and we can talk them through how we might be able to assist them if that is a problem. But what we find is that for a lot of clients, they haven't actually provided that information. They won't be able to get a grant of legal aid until we see that information and we can assess whether or not they meet the means test. So it really is essential. Just so you know, about 80% of people who receive legal aid are unemployed or on some other kind of benefit. So if you've got a client who is on a benefit, the chances of them getting legal aid are very high. So they should definitely be putting in an application. We do have some information about the means test and who is definitely not eligible on the website. So people can have a look and see, whether they think they might be eligible and can put in an application that way. The second test that we have is what we call the merits test. And again, this is about our funding, and unfortunately we don't have an endless bucket of money to assist people. So we do look at whether or not the person's case has merit. Is it likely that this person, if they were funded and they had a competent lawyer and they went to court, that they would be successful in what they're arguing and what they're seeking? And so we do have a look at that. I know that's one of the questions that came in prior to the webinar is, do we fund people whose cases that we know cannot be won? It depends because, with everything in the law, there's always sort of subtleties, and it might be that it seems like their case is not winnable, but there might be some sort of legal precedent that might assist them, or there might be some technicality that we can assist. So it is worth putting in an application. But we do look at that, so people just need to be aware of that. So that's the means test and the merit test.
Okay.
Right, so we have an application process, and as I said, the application form is available on the website. It's also available in all of our offices. If people send through a contact form, we can send them out one in the mail. If they call on our legal aid line, we can send them one in the mail as well. So we don't mind how they do it. They can be handwritten, they can be typed, it doesn't matter. But as long as they get them in, as I said, they come to a central place in Brisbane where they're all scanned and then put into the system for assessment. So that's something to just bear in mind. what we find sometimes now, particularly with Australia Post, is that there's quite often a substantial delay between when a client sends off the legal application and then by the time it actually gets to us. So it is something we're looking at, but the quickest way probably is if you can get it into a legal aid office and they can put it straight into the system.
Okay, so we might do another poll now. So we're just interested in knowing, this is testing a bit of your knowledge here. So if one person gets legal aid, the other party is not able to get legal aid. Do you think this is true or false? This is a really common sort of misconception that people might have about legal aid. All right, I see most of you have voted now, so I'm just going to close off that poll.
Right, so it looks like most people got the answer there. It is false. We will give both parties in a, particularly in a family law matter, child protection matter, we will give both parties legal aid because the same lawyer can't represent both people on different sides of a dispute. We call that a conflict. We do have some issues sometimes about finding a lawyer who can represent that individual person. So it might be for whatever reason, we can't actually look after that person in-house, and then we will send them out to one of our preferred suppliers, or it might be the other way around. The preferred supplier might be able to look after them and they'll send them in-house. We will find a lawyer to look after a person. So a conflict of interest doesn't stop us from giving a person a grant of aid. It might stop us from giving them an in-house lawyer though. Just because one person got legal aid, it doesn't mean that the other person can't get legal aid. We will fund anybody who's eligible and meets our means and merits test.
So if in doubt, always apply. Okay, there's one more poll we've got here. Another bit of a myth buster. So do you think this statement's true or false? I am working, so I cannot get legal aid. And I think Katrina mentioned this before. So this will test your knowledge a bit if you were listening. Okay. I see most of you have voted, so I'm closing off that poll, and heaps of you got it right.
That's great. So yes, so just because you're working doesn't mean you're not eligible. It's going to depend on your individual financial circumstances. So particularly for those clients who are working part-time or who are working full-time but with a very low wage, the chances are they're going to be eligible. So it's definitely worth putting in an application.
Okay, great. That's great. All right, so I'm going to talk about this a little bit because this is my role at Legal Aid. So I'm in the community legal education team. We're a very small team, but very enthusiastic team, and we love to organise things and go out to any community events that you guys have in your area. And what my team does is we coordinate staff across our offices to go out to these events with us. And we also coordinate them to do talks on different legal issues. And we also do webinars like this one, and we try and do 10 to 12 of these webinars a year. So that's our thing. And we have a community legal education strategy. So it's actually a part of Legal Aid's, one of their priorities is to engage with the community in this way. And I won't go through the whole strategy today, but it is on our website. And we're all about sort of recognising early intervention as a way to reach out to clients and help the broader community. So we're all about resolving legal problems early, and community legal education is sort of one of the ways that we can achieve that goal. So if you want to know more about our CLE strategy, have a look on our website or just contact me or Linda Richards in our team as well. It's happy to talk about that. And if you've got any requests, if you want us to come out to an event near you, just pop me an email through that email address on the screen, and I can respond to you about that.
Yeah, and we do have lawyers who can come and do sort of talks about particular things. We quite often send lawyers out, particularly around to do some education around child protection, family law, some of our civil law areas. So we do have a lot of specialist lawyers here at Legal Aid with a lot of specialist knowledge in particular areas. So if you feel that you would benefit from a sort of an intensive session on some particular area of the law, please contact the Community Legal Aid. And also we have a lot of our webinars and seminars we actually video or
this is recorded today,
and I think they go on our...
We have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
You might not know about our YouTube channel. It's very exciting. Lots of lawyers on there talking about legal topics if you want to have a look at any of our past webinars.
That's right.
Okay.
Great.
So we'll go to our Q&A now.
Yes.
So if you've got time to stick around, we've got 10 more minutes. So we'll just go through any questions that you guys sent in. And if you want to ask us questions now, shoot them through to us and we can read them.
Yes.
And Katrina's going to answer those.
I will, to the best of my ability. All right. So I'll just go through some of the ones that we had prior to the webinar. The first question is, what's the best way to apply for legal aid? And can you provide assistance with filling out the forms? Look, I think the best way to apply is whichever is going to be the quickest way for your client. Normally what we find is people have court dates coming up or there's some kind of urgent issue. So whatever way you can get the application to us urgently is going to be the best way. So if that means sending it to one of our officers, popping in and filling it out at the office, or potentially also for those clients who need assistance filling in the form, we are able to help some clients fill in the form, so especially at our front counters, but also over the phone. So we have a service at the moment in the contact centre which we're calling the Client Assistance Service, and it's specifically for this purpose, which is for those people who need some help filling in the form. We can offer that assistance as well. But the quickest way is if they can get into an office. If they can't get into an office, the other, I guess, way is that you can assist them to fill in the form. That's okay. We just need a note at the back to say, you know, that maybe you've assisted and the reason why you've assisted, because that might help us to work out if your client is particularly vulnerable as well. And the other quick way is if the client wants to go, if there's no legal aid office close by, but there is a preferred supplier, and there's a list of preferred suppliers on the website as well, the client can go directly to the preferred supplier and put in the legal aid application. And they can also be assisted to do a legal aid application at any of our duty lawyer services. So that they're probably the quickest ways.
Yeah, all right. So another question we've got from someone is how to make the process easy for people with low literacy levels.
Yeah, look, the form is tricky. It is difficult and it does require a lot of information. Just so people know, we are in the process right now actually of looking at the form, and one of the things that we're trying to do, there's a big question at the back which is set out your legal problem, and what we find is a lot of clients find it difficult to actually articulate that in a way so that we actually know what it is that they're wanting assistance with. So as I said, we're happy for you to assist them put in the form. Just put a note there and say that you assisted them. Our advice lawyers can also assist them with what to actually put in the form. So if they want to call and make an advice appointment, we can help them with that. Also the duty lawyers. And as I said, we've got that phone service for people who are really struggling with their literacy or writing or for whatever reason. We can assist them with that as well.
Yeah, okay. So another question that somebody asked us was how to refer people in regional and remote areas where they're travelling and low incomes present a difficulty.
Yeah.
That's a hard question.
It is. Look, I actually think for people in sort of remote and regional areas, the best way is to come through our advice line, because we'll actually sort out the referral for them, and we'll actually help them to find somewhere to go. And if they can't go anywhere, then we can actually do that remotely here from Brisbane. So we've got the advice lawyers here who can give the advice if they need advice. We can assist them with getting the form in, all of those things. So I would say probably refer straight through to the 1300 number if there's not a legal aid office close to you.
Yeah. All right. Another question we've got from someone was how to support someone in referrals and filling out paperwork, and also understanding what is required from all parties.
Okay, so I'm not sure what this might actually mean. I'm just going to assume that you've got a client who has got something happening in court, and that you're sort of supporting them to go through that process, and it's probably a process that you may not be familiar with. So I guess the first thing I would say is just have a look at the website and see if there's a kit. Because the kit will actually tell you exactly what the steps are, what the process is, and what the paperwork is that needs to be filled out. If you're still having difficulties and you are wanting to support a client, I would say use the contact form, and we'll get someone to call you back and talk you through what needs to happen for this client. Or alternatively, again, get the client to call through the 1300 number, and we'll book them in for an advice clinic, and the lawyer can help them do that. Now, we quite often have support people in advice appointments, and that can be helpful, particularly for our very vulnerable clients. There's someone there to take the notes about what needs to happen. And most of our advice lawyers will give people sort of a step-by-step from here or some homework to do. So if you've got a client who you think needs a little bit of support and you're able to be that support person, or you can identify a support person for them, that's fine. They can come along to the appointment as long as the actual client that we're seeing and giving advice to is okay with the person being in the room. That's not a problem for us.
Yeah, great.
Next question is, are people here in Australia on bridging visas eligible for legal aid? This is a bit of a complicated area. I'm just going to say it depends on the visa and the circumstances. So it's probably best to either give us a call through the contact us through the contact us form, or book the client in for advice, and then we can get some details about what the visa is, what the problem is, and whether or not we can assist them in terms of being eligible for aid. This is another question. Why does it take so long to receive a response in regards to legal support? So I guess there's a couple of things in that. I think I've probably flagged a couple of them. First of all is sometimes we find an issue with the application actually getting to us. So it can take sort of 8 or 10 working days from some places for the application to get to us. So if you've got an urgent application and you need to get it to us urgently, again, maybe contact through the contact form, and we'll work out a way for that application to come in. We've got some email addresses that it can be emailed to. The other issue about why it takes so long is generally the assessment process. So what we find is clients either haven't articulated the issue properly and we don't know what they want, or alternatively they haven't provided the information that we need to actually get the application sorted. So the grants officers, when they get the application, they'll do the assessment process, and then they will quite often write to the client and say, you know, look, we haven't got all the information we need. Can you give us a call? Then there's a bit of a delay with that paperwork too. I would say if a client is waiting on a grant of aid and they're stressing out and they need to know what's happened, they need to call that grants inquiry line is what we call it, and the number was there on the screen for you, because we can get into the system, look at where it's up to, give the client an idea. If there's a letter that's been sent out to them that they haven't received yet, we can read out the letter to them and say, look, this is what this letter says, this is what it means, this is what you need to get it to us, and this is how you need to get it to us. So hopefully that will assist with some, you know, sort of speediness in terms of assessments. And that one we've already answered.
There's a few that have popped up here on our screen. So what have we got?
Luckily I'm wearing my glasses. I can't actually read
that. Writing. That's okay with us. So do you want to answer this one?
Okay. Why in some cases don't you tell people why they aren't approved for legal aid? Okay, so the question was, why in some cases don't you tell people why they aren't approved for legal aid? We always tell people why they aren't approved. We actually have some letters that we call refusal letters, which actually set out the reasons why the application has been refused. Now, unfortunately, some of those letters are a little bit bureaucratic, and what we find is that clients don't actually understand the reason for the refusal. So again, if they're not understanding the reason for the refusal, they need to come through on the grants inquiry line, and we can actually explain it for them, what it actually means. If a person has been refused for legal aid though, and this is something that you need to know about, we do have some review mechanisms for people's application to be looked at again. So we have an internal review mechanism where we have a more senior grants officer look at the application and reassess it. And then we also have a thing that we call external review, which is where we send it out to some independent lawyers who look at the application and who will then either agree or not, or disagree about the merit of that particular matter. So if you've got a client who has been refused legal aid, there are those processes for review. Again, the information about, and so I'm just conscious of time, the information about that is on the website. But again, if a person is refused legal aid and they've got a letter that they don't understand, if they ring us, we'll explain what the letter means for them, and we can also tell them through what they need to do in terms of the review process.
Also, somebody's just asked, will they receive a copy of the PowerPoint slides from today? And yes, you will. After the presentation, in a few days' time, I'll send out the PowerPoint to everyone who registered for this webinar.
There's another question here about what age does the Youth Legal Aid Line service. There is no age limit on that, although, look, realistically, we don't receive calls from young children. It just doesn't happen, I think. But we do represent young people from the age of 10. So pretty much anyone from 10 onwards, we will assist with a legal problem. And in the family law arena and the child protection arena, we also assist children who are younger than that in sort of different ways. We don't actually give them a lawyer to represent them, but we do have lawyers who represent their interests in court. So there's not really an age limit on the Youth Legal Line. What we find, though, is that for a lot of sort of pre-teenage children, it's the parents who are calling through on the Youth Legal Info line, and that's fine. We can talk to the parents about what's likely to happen and maybe organise some advice for them or for the young person if that's required.
Okay, there's a child protection related question there.
Okay, so the question is, we have a lot of child protection matters where clients don't have a court order but might be engaging in a voluntary capacity with the department. They often need advice about their rights. Can they call the legal aid advice line without a court order in place? Yes, they can, and they should, because some of those agreements are very restrictive and can have the same effect as a court order. So really, before anybody signs any paperwork with the department, they should be getting legal advice. We also have an early intervention service in our child protection area, which is specifically for clients who are engaged with the department, but there has not yet been an order made. So yes, we can assist them. And please,
we did a webinar on that just last week, so it's already on our YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about the child protection early intervention lawyers and what they do, have a look on our YouTube channel.
Great. Is that...
Okay, let me have a look. I think there's a few more. Okay, how trauma informed are your practitioners and your service in general?
Yes, this is a very interesting topic for us, because we're just really starting to look at how we need to potentially adapt some of our services with a sort of a trauma-informed lens. We do have internally for our staff, we do a lot of extensive training around trauma, the effects of trauma, and also sort of psychological wellness for our staff in terms of dealing with clients who are impacted by trauma. But I guess, you know, it's something that we are definitely looking at. I wouldn't say that we have a formalised trauma-informed practice at the moment, but in a very sort of informal way, the way that we do our work and our case management standards do, you know, require us to consider that. And our client base, a lot of our client base have experienced trauma. So it's something that we're very aware of in our day-to-day work. Do we have a policy on the website about that? Not now, but potentially soon. All I can say.
That's good. Okay. So can a person who is eligible but presently being represented by a private solicitor apply for legal aid?
Yes, they can. You know, we see this quite a lot. People start off with a private solicitor and then they find that they're not able to continue because, I mean, it can be very expensive. A good, you know, a good family lawyer can cost you sort of $350, $450 an hour. So that is a lot of money. Yes, they can, but they can't be represented by both at the same time. So if they've got a private solicitor and that private solicitor is on our preferred supplier panel, then yes, they can apply for aid and they can continue with that solicitor. But if that solicitor is not on our panel and they get a grant of aid, then they'll have to take that grant of aid to someone who is on our panel.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a decision for them, but yes, they can certainly apply and we'll assess the application.
Yeah. And a couple more. So can people in regional areas utilise the advice service over the phone where there is no contact centre in their town?
So sorry, I should have said the contact centre is actually here in Brisbane. So
Yeah.
all of our client information officers are based here in Brisbane, and it's the one phone service that goes all the way around Queensland. So yes, they can call the contact centre and we can assist. It's our officers that are in the various locations. So in those regional offices, normally we have a grants officer, we have a conference organiser, we have some family lawyers and some criminal lawyers, and sort of some admin staff as well. But the contact centre, which is where most of the information is done, is a statewide service based in Brisbane.
Yeah, okay. So one of you is also saying, do people in regional areas have to use their preferred supplier? We only have 2 preferred suppliers in our town, and there can be conflicts of interest, or simply that the client doesn't wish to use one of those lawyers. That's a tricky question.
It is. And look, it is a problem where we've got some limited preferred suppliers, and it's something that we're very aware of in terms of our planning for our regional and remote services, is that there are some areas where we do have limited preferred suppliers. In terms of there being a conflict of interest, if there is a conflict of interest, and people should realise that part of the grant assessment process is actually looking to see the conflicts of interest. So if your client, when they're applying for a grant of aid, is aware of a conflict of interest, they certainly should write that on the form. We'll probably find it when we do our conflict of interest check though also. If they don't wish to use one of those lawyers, it's a bit trickier. We don't necessarily give people the lawyer of their choice. But if people are using they've been given a grant of aid and they have a lawyer, we do have a process for applying to change a solicitor, and that needs to be done in writing. There's a little process for that, and again, there's information on our website, or if you call the grants inquiry line, the client information officers will talk you through what you need to do to make that application.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was one here. Can they elect a different lawyer and have legal aid funding allocated to that representative?
Yes, I think sort of all of those questions are sort of a similar theme.
Yeah.
They can, yes, in a way, they can have a different lawyer, but it's got to be a lawyer on the preferred supplier panel. And grants will allocate the grant of aid. If that's not a suitable allocation, then there's that process to go through to actually get that looked at again.
Yeah, okay. So send your questions through if you want to stick around. I realise it's past 11, so feel free to leave if you need to. Are there any more questions? Let's see. I think all of you have submitted your questions now. So I might do a bit of a wrap up then. And thank you so much, Katrina.
No problem.
Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah,
it's great. So basically, I want to flag now our next webinar will be the end of April, start of May sometime. It will likely be about living with domestic violence and family violence, and from one of the lawyers in one of our family law teams. It might be about counselling notes protect as well. We're still working out what we're going to do for that webinar, but keep tuned because it will be very exciting. I also want to say that our February head note is out now on our website. So that's our Legal Aid newsletter, which has all our new service updates and new publications and information all in that head note. So look on our website for that. And of course, this webinar will be up on YouTube, so you can go back and refer to it at any time. And yeah.
And I've just got, sorry, one thing I forgot to say. If you are looking at the information pages, when you get onto our website, you'll see in the information page, I might just quickly jump in if we can, if we've got time. So you'll see on our, hopefully everyone can see that, on our information pages on our website, we've got the Find Legal Information tab. So if you click on that tab, you'll get into this page, which is Find Legal Information.
Yeah.
You'll see there are 2 different search functions there. Don't use the top search function because that searches the whole of the website and will bring back information that you don't really need. So use this search for legal information function, and that will bring you up anything that you need to know if you're finding the actual index is a bit difficult. So you can see there we've got topics. You can just click on a topic there and it will take you to the page. And just try and, if you've got a client who's not finding that they're getting the information back that they need, use that search for legal information button.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
that's my big tip.
Big tip. Very helpful for you guys trying to find information quickly and easily on our website. Okay.
Great.
So a survey form will pop up when I close this webinar. We'd love for you to fill it out just so we know how we've done today. So please let us know if you've got a few minutes. If you could fill out that form, that would be great. Okay. And I think that's all from me.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you. We'll see you at our next webinar.